Hi, my name is Steve Dana. I work at the WSWHE BOCES in beautiful upstate New York, and I am on the Race to the Top network team. And this webcast is going to look at the Principal APPR and the ISSLC 2008 policy standards for educational leadership. So, some of the resources that we're using came from a 2011 NISCUS session by Dr. Joseph Murphy and Dr. Robert McClure on principal evaluation in New York State, focus on student learning. Other information is from the 2010 Wallace Foundation reports on leadership and the work of Marzano, Waters, and McNulty from McREL. Work by Leithwood, Harris, and Hopkins on the 7 strong claims of leadership include, among the 7, 1. School leadership is second only to classroom teaching as an influence on pupil learning. 2. All successful leaders draw on the same basic set of effective leadership practices. 4. School leaders improve teaching and learning indirectly and most powerfully in their or through their influence on staff motivation, commitment, and working conditions, i.e. school culture. And the 4th item that's most important in my mind is that school leadership has a greater influence on schools and students when it's widely distributed. Race to the top. School reform cannot happen effectively without shared leadership. It's a big process, and one individual cannot do it alone. In terms of race to the top, one of the assurance areas is about great teachers and leaders. And the middle bullet speaks to the principal piece, of which 40% of a principal's rating or evaluation will be based on student achievement measures. The remaining 60% will be through annual evaluations by the supervisor of the principal. And those evaluations will be done through state-approved, New York State Ed-approved principal rubrics, which include the Vanderbilt Assessment of Leadership in Education, also known as VALED, the Reeves Leadership Performance Matrix, the Multidimensional Principal Performance Rubric, Marshall's Principal Evaluation Rubric, and Marzano's School Administrator Rubric. People do better when they know better. And basically, to help our leaders, school leaders, do better, we need to help them through professional development, vicarious learning opportunities, and positive, detailed feedback. We also need to ensure that our evaluation tools are effective and aligned with the ISSLC standards. We have great leaders in the region, and these tools will help them grow in their leadership capacity. When you're building a principal evaluation tool, in New York State at least, those tools are based on the ISSLC 2008 standards. However, evaluation systems need to also be based on research, best practice, and experiential learning. Learning through doing. Learning through reflecting. They should also be focused on advancing that learning, and obviously indicators of student, teacher, and leader growth is essential, as is the use of evidence to support one's conclusions and statements regarding performance. Some things to consider. First of all, when designing your tool, there needs to be flexibility and a look at multiple measures of performance. Certainly the diversity and context of the school and district needs to be considered. The tools need to be clear and explicit, also valid and reliable. And there needs to be a shared responsibility between the supervisor and the leader being evaluated. This is a personal experience, and so there's a shared responsibility there. Formative and summative assessments are essential. And going back to that personal piece, collaboration and ongoing communication feedback will help cultivate the trust that's necessary in this evaluation process between principal and supervisor. This all needs to lead to professional growth and the development of the leader being evaluated. For the areas that are being targeted as areas in need of improvement, there needs to be effective and sustained professional growth. In addition, this needs to be based on the learning for all students, and confidentiality is the norm here. As I mentioned earlier, 60% of a principal's evaluation score will be based on evaluation. The other 40% will be on student learning through state and local assessments. And all the rubrics are based on the Education Leadership Policy Standards, ISSLC 2008. When you look at the policy standards, they are drawn from the original 1996 Interstate School Leaders Licensure Consortium standards. These have been revised because of the research on educational leadership to now be written as policy standards to guide policy making and vision setting for educational leadership development. With that in mind, let's look at the 6. The first one is basically vision. It's strategic action planning. It's helping people understand what their values and beliefs are, what the data tells them regarding the discrepancies from reality and their values and beliefs, helping them strategically action plan to realize goals, and then monitoring their effectiveness. So standard 1 is about vision setting, goal setting, and action planning. Our second standard is about culture and instructional program. It's about that academic optimism, what Hoy Tarter and Hoy describe as a focus on academic emphasis, rigor. Rigor for all, staying within the zone of proximity that Vygotsky speaks to. It's about trust. Trust of parents, of faculty, of students. And of course, it's about collective efficacy. So this second standard is about instruction and culture. The third one is basically management and organization and maintaining a safe and efficient environment so that children can learn to their optimal capacity. And it's using resources well and basically ensuring that there is a well and purposed use of time towards instruction and student learning. Our fourth is basically communication and collaboration. It's working with community. It's cultivating important relationships that as the proverb goes, it takes a whole village to raise a child. And so it goes with standard 4. We need to ensure that everyone is part of this solution to student learning. The fifth standard is about character. It's about integrity, fairness, and ethics. It's about making good decisions that are based on democracy, equity, and diversity. Ultimately, we're going to be graduating students to live a democratic way of life, and we need to be able to represent what that looks like in our day-to-day actions. And standard 6 is basically being responsive to the political, social, economic, legal, and cultural contexts that leaders face, and to act prudently and responsibly in that arena. So there are 6 standards, and they can be used to help evaluate districts' principal evaluation tools. When looking at your principal evaluation system, you want to be mindful of the authentic methods that principals can use to track their individual performance. Let's call it metacognition, awareness of one's thinking. We want self-reflection, self-analyses, and these kinds of thought can be evidenced in portfolios, journals, and other such items. In addition, we want to evaluate our district and board policy with the ISSLC policy standards in mind. And of course, we want to ensure that there's sustained quality professional development that is congruent with those policy standards and addresses any gaps that may exist between the principal's performance and those policy standards. Once again, second to classroom instruction, principal leadership is essential to student learning, and the ISSLC standards hold great potential to help us realize this important element of Race to the Top.